Hey, you're back in the rig. It's good to have you going down the road with us. Interesting day. Kyle Agri's going to join us. We'll get a chance to talk about the outdoors a little bit. Kyle is an expert when it comes to it. Brewer Agri Outdoors are one of their, well, that's what they do. They're on TV all across North Dakota, South Dakota, and they're experts when it comes to everything outdoors. So we'll get a chance to visit with Kyle. Also, Rhoda Owens is going to join us. She's Dr. Owens. We're going to talk to her about the workforce issues when it comes to nursing. But let's start with workforce issues. Phil Davis. Phil is Workforce Services Director with Job Service North Dakota, and he's giving us some of his time. Phil, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Yeah, good afternoon, Joel. Thanks for having me. I appreciate that. Sounds like you got a really fun show today, especially with the outdoors, and I'm always interested in that also. So,
well,
yeah.
I'm mad. The geese keep my lake open, and of course I love to go ice fishing. And Christmas time, if the lake is froze, I can send all the little guys out there and have them skating around, but it isn't working. So I asked for a pass from Game and Fish to pluck off some of these geese, and their answer was no. I don't know where they're coming from with that.
I suppose, yeah, that, and you have your big ice show in Fargo this weekend too. So I'm kind of jealous with that. Yeah,
exactly. Phil, I want to talk about the new jobs report when it comes to North Dakota. What did you see?
Well, again, we're staying very strong. We had just over 17,500 jobs available during the month of November. That was down just 700 from the previous month of October. And again, since 2015, this would put us right at about the 6th or 7th highest month of job openings in the great state of North Dakota. So, and what we saw was just, like I said, those 700 jobs were primarily in our construction and some of our healthcare facilities dropped some of their openings just a little bit. Obviously, construction kind of makes sense with the change that we've had in the weather the last 2 to 3 weeks. And healthcare, we were trying to look at that a little bit, get a little bit more of a finer detail, but that was some of just some of the bigger facilities around the state had a decrease in some of their job openings. But again, I think I've mentioned this before in some of your other radio shows that we can take those 17,500 jobs, but I think we can also probably double that amount, because what we see a lot of times, is maybe the employer will just put one opening out there on our website, jobsnd.com. But really, if 2 or 3 individuals walk through who had the capability, the training, the experience, they would probably hire those individuals on the spot also.
Yeah, I think you're spot on right about that. Phil, you mentioned healthcare. Are we talking about long-term care? Are we talking about emergency care? What are we talking about when it comes to the healthcare industry?
It's really across the board. And when we're talking healthcare, we're talking anything from being a surgeon to working in the cafeteria. And of course, we've all heard the huge openings that are in the nursing criteria. We have such a big demand for CNAs, for LPNs, RNs, and it doesn't matter if it's the long-term care facilities or, our regional hospitals like Sanford or CHI and those bigger ones across the state. So we're seeing with some of our job orders, especially in some of the long-term care facilities, we're seeing hiring bonus from anywhere from $3,500 up to $10,000. Obviously there's a time commitment there and that sort of thing, but some of those are really becoming, I would say, unprecedented over the last couple of years, what these employers are really trying to do and pull some different tricks out of their big bag that they're trying to do to attract that workforce.
Are they, when it comes to that industry in particular, I want to just kind of focus on long-term care if we could, are they changing what they do or can do because of it? Are they saying, look, we can only take so many residents in because we can't find the help we need? And then pretty soon you've got grandma or grandpa going to some of the bigger cities from some of the smaller cities.
Yeah, I would kind of reserve on answering that question. Maybe that would be another question for your guest coming on. But what I can say is we've had, I can think up in the northwestern part of the state, we actually just had a long-term care facility close up there. Now, do I know every detail about why that facility closed? No, but I do know workforce was a part of that. Just the attraction is such a rural area in the northwestern part of the state. And we can really look at North Dakota is rural. We can look at that. And I know that some of these long-term care facilities have been struggling. They struggled during, the onset of COVID, and they're still struggling coming, again, I don't know if we can say coming out of COVID, but in the current situation that we're in.
So you also mentioned construction. There are difference between road construction, building trades, those type of things, but some of that is seasonal. Do you expect some of that to be going down, Phil?
Yeah, I would say we're going to keep holding strong in construction. And I think what we've seen over the last, even before COVID, is a lot of these construction employers will try to find jobs to do inside before. And obviously the road construction guys aren't going to be able to continue to work, but some of the other construction employers, businesses they have more. They might be doing roads one day, they might be doing a building. They have a lot of different jobs going on, so they'll move their workforce around just to keep them employed. And we do see a kind of an uptick in our unemployment during the months of November, December, and January. And then when the weather starts breaking, maybe that end of February again, we'll see our unemployment, start going back down. But what like I said before, what we have seen is more of those businesses try to keep their workers on, so they don't take that chance of losing them in those 3 to 4 months to another company.
Does that affect that worker's eligibility for unemployment if you work in this construction area, and it might be a little more seasonal, and then you find yourself in a situation where there is a job available, but it might not be with your current boss?
No, it would not. And obviously we adjudicate every claim on an individual basis, but predominantly if you're a seasonal construction guy or gal out there and your company lays you off, you're considered what we call job attached to your employer. Your employer pays into that unemployment tax, throughout the year, every quarter. And then that is meant, to keep those individuals employed or attached to their employer, I should say, not employed, but attached to their employer, so they don't lose them come that March, April timeframe when they're calling them back for further employment.
We mentioned long-term care, how decisions can be made, and as you pointed out, maybe it's a question best asked for our next guest. But I do know, and I'm sure you do as well, a number of small businesses that have really, there is a demand. They could grow, but they just can't find the employees they need. And are you guys, seeing some of that? Are you keeping track of some of that?
We are definitely seeing that. And I think you can really hit on maybe even some of the hotel industry, the hospitality industry, especially with the restaurant industry, where they've had to change their hours of operation. Maybe they used to be open 6 days a week, and now they're only open 5 days a week. And they're not, I can say here in Bismarck, we have some restaurants that are no longer open on Sunday. They're closed on Sunday and Monday to give that workforce, at least a couple days off, because they can't bring anybody else on to keep open during that Sunday and Monday timeframe. So we are definitely seeing that, and we're seeing more and more of that over the last probably 6 to 9 months than what we were before. And as far as your comment about growing their businesses, definitely, if they can't, get the workforce to fulfill the current job openings, how can they even build and look at going to, saying they're opening a restaurant here in this town, and they've been open for 5 or 6 years and have been doing very well. Well, I'd like to open up in maybe a small town that's 50, 60 miles away. They're not looking at that any longer like they were prior to the pandemic, and I guess you could say prior to the big resignation, to the big layoff, and that sort of thing. What we're going through as a workforce right now.
So, and I think people have noticed this, that we're focusing on filling jobs now and not what could be the jobs we could achieve in the future. And I think you were just really honest by saying you could easily double the numbers that we're talking about because they've just moved out of the workforce. Are people going, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but, as somebody who's 60 years old now, it's fair for me to say, are they recycling? we always think of that next generation of workers that we can bring in. Are they looking at the individuals that might have retired, or might be looking at that age where instead of golfing every day, maybe you could take on a little part-time work here and there?
Right. I think right now, most employers are looking at everything they can possibly do to at least get somebody in there to fill, even if it's for a couple hours a day. And they're looking at those populations where maybe they didn't really look at before. And like you just said, maybe it is the folks who have retired. I shared, I think last week in your show, we read an article here, just in the last 12 months, we've seen over 3.6 million people retire in the United States. And I think that number is probably a little conservative. But I also shared where before we had multiple job holders in the state of North Dakota. And when COVID hit, some of those jobs, went away, the businesses, closed, or they just weren't allowed to work at that time. And so now what those workers are doing that used to work 2 and 3 jobs are only working their primary job, or they're not, filling in on a Saturday or Sunday or a late evening shift. So I think it has to do with a little bit of what's happening with our workforce. But then, like you said, we have to look at the future too, and how we can grow our economy. And it's very hard to do right now in some of these industries.
Well, one of the big tells for me is going to be where we're at with the vote on Starbucks. Starbucks looking to whether or not to unionize. And of course, that tells me that there's a lot of workers out there that see this as a buyer's market, that there's a lot of workers that now are in the driver's seat when it comes to some of these issues. And I know that you communicate with many of the people that are in your profession nationwide. How does North Dakota match up when it comes to other states?
We're in the same boat as every other state. And like you said, we do have peers out there, and we have associations that we belong to, and it's the same thing. So when we're looking at maybe attracting talent from out of state, these same states are doing the same thing to us, and I think we saw that in the Fargo Forum back in the spring. Sioux Falls put, I think it was a 19-page article about why you'd want to move out of North Dakota to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, because of all the things that they have there and they can offer. But, we can do the same thing here in North Dakota. I think we just need to do a little bit better of spreading the news about what we have here and take advantage of.
Phil, keep doing what you're doing. I know you're working hard. It's an uphill climb. There isn't anything you can do about it other than encourage people to have about 8 kids again, each one. So,
yeah, there you go.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, good luck with that ice fishing, and I hope those geese move out so you can get that lake put back together so we can have some clear ice out there.
We're going to encourage them one way or another.
All right.
We'll start screaming at them for the show.
All right.